Today we're once again going through the analysis of Soul Survivor, the woman who fell to earth. Now today's task is going to be more in-depth analysis of the text and the question as well. So from this text we're going to have this question. So it says, explain how the writer presents her experience of survival, right? So the sole focus of the question is on the idea of survival. So when we are analyzing the entire text, we're only going to focus on points that actually deal with this particular idea. Now we have to obviously talk about the references that will be there to support your specific identification. So I have started with the very first quotation that we are going to use from the text. So if you look at this one, it says, the plane started lurching and bumping in the air. Then, in a single catastrophic moment, a bolt of lightning hit one of the fuel tanks and tore the wing right off, right? If you look at this one, so I have identified the point first. So from this particular section, if you were to identify what points there might be, a few things that would come into your notice would be adjective and strong verbs. So if you look at this one, you'll see, so lurching and catastrophic, these two are basically the adjectives that have been used here. Now the next comes the explanation. How are we supposed to explain that particular use of adjective? So if you look at the explanation section, it says convey the suddenness and the violence of the crash, right? And then we need to talk about effect. Now here you have to identify one thing, and that is whether you actually need the effect or not, whether you're going to go through with only explanation or not. If you are planning to go through only explanation, then it's completely fine. But if you can talk about the effect section as well, then I would ask you to combine them both. So once again, we're taking lurching. If you can see, this is lurching, and then we have catastrophic. This is catastrophic. And in the quotation section, you can see I have only quoted the words, nothing else. Why? Because I'm only focusing on adjectives. So making the reader feel discomfort and fear. So if you think about that, lurching and bumping in the air, and then catastrophic moment is created. So if you combine all of these words, it does give you the feeling that something serious is going to happen at any moment in the text. Then we're going to move into the actual answer. This is the full P format answer of one particular point. So if you look at this one, the writer strategically uses adjectives such as catastrophic and lurching. Once again, you can see I have only used quotations, right? For what? Only the words, specific words, to enhance the reader's emotional response, conveying the suddenness and violence of the crash, making the reader feel the discomfort and fear she was going through. So if we talk about this particular point, then you can obviously understand the first one is the point section. Then we have the quotation, two of them, since we're talking about adjectives, so two quotations. Then we have this, our explanation, followed by what? Effect, right? If we move on to the next one, we have another quotation from the text. If you open your text, then you can identify these quotations as well. Here it says, Kepke remembers falling head first with the seat belt digging into her stomach and a canopy of trees spiraling towards her. This is the entire section from the text that is important. Now we have to identify what specific part is actually important. So if you look at this one here, our focus is on what? Imagery and strong verbs. Why is this imagery? Primarily because of the way the information has been carried out. So when we are quoting this particular sentence, what we're going to do is we're going to quote the entire one. You might come into a situation where you might think, okay, such a big quotation and I have very limited amount of time. So what do you do in such a situation? Simple. What you do is you write the first three words of the quotation, then you give ellipsis. Now what's an ellipsis? Ellipsis is basically three full stop, and this is an ellipsis, right? So you basically give an ellipsis and then you write the last three words of the quotation that you're trying to quote, right? If it's a big one. So that way you are reducing the word limit and you're also reducing the time you'll be spending for the entire answer, right? Now, if we look at the explanation, here I have further quoted specific sections from this text to distinguish which part goes with which one, because we have 2 points here, imagery and strong verbs, right? So if you look at this one, it says vivid imagery, head first, and canopy of trees. So when she's falling head first. It basically creates an image in our mind how her seat is actually heading towards the earth, right? And then again, canopy of trees also gives us a picture of what type of vegetation are we talking about, right? And then I have talked about strong verbs. So, and strong verbs like digging and spiraling. If you see, once again, if you look at the quotation, it's there. Spiraling and digging. So create a visceral sense of disorientation and pain, right? It creates a very innate idea of disorientation and pain, as if you can also feel it, because when you read it, it gives you that kind of feeling. It's digging into her stomach because it's so strong, right? Think about it. If you're like harnessed into a chair and that chair is falling 2 miles above the sky, so obviously the harness that is around your tummy, it's going to pull you really hard, because you'd be obviously trying to separate from the chair, right? So that's why it creates a sense of disorientation and pain. Now, when we talk about effect, enhances the reader's empathy and engagement with her story. So when you see that the main character is going through such traumatic experience, you also feel sorry for her, right? So that makes you more engaged. And this is the reason why the writer of this text has used such words. Now, all of those points have been converted into a paragraph. So if you look at this one, the writer uses imagery describing how Kepti fell head first with the seatbelt digging. So I have quoted the entire quotation, pretty much the entire sentence. Why? Because, I have space. Here, the use of vivid imagery through phrases, head first and canopy of trees, alongside strong verbs like digging and spiraling, create an innate sense of disorientation and pain, enhancing readers' empathy and engagement with her story. So it's not too different from what you come up with. It's basically that, but written in a paragraph format. This one is also something we've already talked about. If you look at this sentence, it says, then she lost consciousness, right? Very short sentence, and it's also a simple sentence. So what does a simple sentence do? We already know that, right? So point, simple sentence, evidence. It's a simple sentence, so very short. So that much, the entire thing is evidence. And this one is related to structure of the writing. So we are talking about simple sentence. There might be one where we will talk about complex sentences. So if you look at this one, it says, delivers impactful moments with blunt finality, underscoring the unpredictability and abruptness of her ordeal. So basically, when you use simple and short sentences, once again, if you look at this one, it's exactly what I had written down in the notes part. So the point is there, the evidence is there, and then again, the explanation that I have given, that's it. If you notice this one, it says, the forest that had saved her life became her prison. This sentence actually has a lot of things going for it. One of them is obviously juxtaposition. The other one is also irony. And if you remember what's irony, it's basically creating a situation that would normally not happen, right? So if you look at this one, so saved her life and then became a prison. So that's how it's a juxtaposition, because if you talk about her situation, then parallelly two things are happening. One, she got saved, and on the other hand, she also got into a situation where it's like a prison-like situation. The entire forest saved her because she was supported by the canopy of trees, which is why she was alive. The forest has become a prison because she does not have any supplies with her. So surviving there would obviously be very difficult. So that's another point. Now, if you look at the explanation, so the irony emphasizes the cruel twist of fate, while the contrast underscores the hostile environment that Kepki had to navigate. So twist of fate, why? Because this is not how it's supposed to happen. If something saves you, it's not supposed to take your life again. That's why it's ironical. On the other hand, The contrast also makes you realize how bad the situation actually is. Now, what is the effect? It basically deepens the understanding of her condition, of her problems that she is facing, highlighting the unpredictable nature of survival against all odds. Right? At this particular situation, our character is trying to survive, but it's very difficult, and we can understand through that one particular sentence. Just the fact that we have that word prison right there. It's like she cannot escape. All of these points are actually focusing towards the idea of her survival, nothing else. For example, when we were having classes, we talked about specific numbers, right? 1971, when this incident happened, but you have seen that I have not used that point here. Why? Because that is not strictly related to survival. That is definitely a point that you can identify. It's a language technique, sure, but it's not related to this particular question. So if you look at this one, once again, I have done the very same thing, slightly changed the words a little, but it's basically a collection of all the points that we have seen already. The use of irony and juxtaposition is evident in the portrayal of the rainforest as both prison and a lifesaver. The irony emphasizes the cruel twist of fate, which the contrast underscores the hostile environment that Kepi had to navigate. So the ironic twist, juxtaposition, deepens the reader's understanding of her plight, highlighting the unpredictable nature of survival against all odds. Format. Pretty simple.